I used to start every morning with the same routine, downing a mug of black coffee while scanning the latest market reports. The gentle hum of traffic on Pine Street seeped through the kitchen window, and the aroma of our neighbor's fried bacon always drifted in around this hour. Today, though, the coffee tasted bitter. My hand trembled as I lifted the mug to my lips, the hush of dawn broken by the pounding in my chest. Something felt off. I glanced at the faint reflection in our stainless steel refrigerator. A 48-year-old man in pressed slacks and a wrinkled shirt stared back. Graying hair, a slightly stooped posture, evidence of too many late nights scouring spreadsheets. But it wasn't the reflection that bothered me. It was the phone in my hand, the short text from an unknown number blinking like a neon sign. "Check your wife's emails, buddy." My stomach churned. I rubbed my tired eyes, hoping this was some vicious spam, but curiosity gnawed at me. If it was a hoax, I could go on with my day. If it wasn't, I set the mug down. My laptop stood on the counter, next to a scatter of finance papers and a half-eaten croissant. Emma still slept upstairs. At least, I assumed she did. She'd come home late last night, hair disheveled, claiming she'd been caught up in an impromptu art workshop. A plausible explanation, right? I typed in her email address, that old password I knew from years ago. We trusted each other, or so I believed. The page loaded slowly. My pulse throbbed in my ears. Sure enough, in her inbox, an entire thread from Brad. There were jokes about meeting up in hidden corners, references to last time, and how exhilarating it felt. My eyes raced over the lines. The text was flirtatious, layered with inside jokes. One particular mention made my heart crash. "I can't stop thinking about how you moan my name." My vision tunneled. I fumbled forward, almost knocking my coffee to the floor. The mug wobbled, droplets spilling. My mind roared, "This can't be real." But there it was, hard proof. Emma, my wife of 15 years, was intimately involved with another man. My mind reeled. Who was this Brad? How long had she been sneaking around? Unable to breathe properly, I staggered into the living room, where framed wedding photos mocked me. Emma in her white gown, smiling with genuine warmth. Me grinning like a fool, ignorant of any future betrayal. My heart hammered, acid creeping up my throat. That old knee injury twinged as I dropped onto the sofa. I scrolled further. There were attachments. I tapped one file, my fingers shaking so violently I missed the screen. Another attempt. It opened. A video. I watched, transfixed, as the camera captured a dimly lit motel room. Unmade sheets. Cheap lamp flickering. In the shot, a glimpse of Emma's bare shoulder, her back turned to the camera. She shifted, and a man's hand slid across her waist, pulling her closer. She laughed. The sound was unmistakable, soft and melodic, a laugh I'd cherished for over a decade. I froze, paralyzed by the intimacy. She angled toward him, her face partially obscured, but the expression left little doubt of raw desire. Then a low murmur, his voice, her name, and a glimpse of him, tall, lean, dark-haired. I nearly dropped the phone. My lungs seized, tears burning the back of my eyes. My wife was with someone else, not in theory, not in rumor, right there on screen. Captured in shocking clarity, I slammed the laptop shut, disgust surging like poison in my veins. My mind raced. Confront her now. Storm into the bedroom, yank back the covers, demand answers. A swirl of scenarios battered my skull. Finally, I stood, my hands balled into fists. She was going to wake up soon, likely expecting me to head off to work as usual. She'd give me a peck on the cheek, wave goodbye. My stomach turned at the thought. Not today. Upstairs, the floor creaked under my weight. Emma's studio door was ajar. Inside, half-finished sketches lay across the big wooden table. Streaks of pastel colors, half a coffee cup leaving a ring on her reference photo. I felt an urge to rip every sheet to shreds, but I held back. My breath hissed through clenched teeth as I approached our bedroom. The door was closed. A pale band of morning light glowed through the gap underneath. I pushed the door open. She lay sprawled in bed, hair fanning across the pillow. Peaceful, serene. A harsh pang of envy smacked me in the chest. How could she sleep so calmly after whatever she did last night? The injustice of it boiled my blood. I walked closer, my reflection crossing the full-length mirror. I looked unhinged, my eyes wild. Maybe I was. Emma stirred. Her eyelids fluttered open. She blinked a few times, then focused on me standing there like a statue. "Jake," she mumbled, voice thick with sleep. "What's wrong?" I held up her phone. "What the hell is this?" My words cut the silence like a knife. The rage I'd bottled up burst free, trembling in each syllable. She rubbed her eyes, confusion clouding her face. I tossed the device onto the bed. She glanced down at it, then back at me. A flicker of alarm twitched at her lips. "What's going on?" She sat up, pulling the sheets around her shoulders. I let out a bitter laugh. "You tell me." "Brad. The emails. The video." My throat constricted around the last word, but I spat it out anyway. Her eyes widened. Panic. Guilt. She masked it quickly, but not quickly enough. "Jake, I can explain." She fumbled for the right words. A million worthless excuses, no doubt. I slammed my palm against the dresser, causing a stack of folded laundry to tumble. "Explain? You have no explanation that makes this okay. I saw you. On video, Emma. With him." Her face paled. She clutched the sheet to her chest. It's not what you think." I almost laughed. The cliché of it. "Oh, really? Not what I think. Because what I think is you let some other man put his hands all over you. You lied to me, Emma." "For how long?" She threw her legs over the edge of the bed, steadying herself. "Jake, please, calm down." The tremor in her voice only fueled my fury. I took a step back, my pulse pounding in my temples. "Don't tell me to calm down. You destroyed everything. Our trust, our life. You calm down." She ran a hand through her hair, eyes darting around the room. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." A hot wave of bitterness rushed through me. My knuckles turned white from clenching my fists. "Then why do it?" My voice cracked. "Why the hell do it?" Her lips parted, but words failed her. The hush in the bedroom felt suffocating, broken only by my ragged breathing and the faint hum of traffic outside. Finally, she whispered. I felt lost. I needed something new, something exciting. It just happened. My laugh was hollow. It just happened. Great. A painting just happens, right? A doodle that turns into an affair. Do you realize what you've done? I gave you my life. Emma. She looked down, tears forming in her eyes. Maybe they were real. Maybe they weren't. I know. I'm sorry. Her voice warbled. We haven't been the same for months, Jake. You're always busy, always stressed. We barely talk. I cut her off. So you decided to talk to Brad with your body. That was your solution. Anger flared in my chest, pulsing like a drum. Stop, a rational voice in my head said. But I couldn't. Emma pressed her hands to her face. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I'm not defending it. My breath came in ragged pulls. I stepped away, pacing near the window. Outside, the streetlight flickered, daylight crawling over the horizon. My mind churned with images, her laughter with him, her secrets, her betrayal. And me, the clueless husband making coffee while she snuck around. How humiliating. Pack a bag. I heard my voice say, distant and cold. Get out. She lifted her head, eyes red-rimmed. Jake. Pack. A bag. I turned, meeting her gaze. I can't look at you right now. She sat there, paralyzed, then stood on shaking legs. Her robe slid off the chair. She slipped it on, moving to the closet. Every rustle of hangers made my stomach twist. The woman I'd loved for 15 years, now a stranger rummaging through the closet we once shared. My mind flickered to the video. The way she laughed with him. She took a small duffel and stuffed in clothes haphazardly, tears rolling down her cheeks. She tried to speak once, but I held up a hand. I didn't trust my words or my fury. When she finished, she paused at the doorway, looking back at me with an expression halfway between shame and desperation. I refused to meet her eyes. A tense moment stretched. Then, without another word, she left. The door clicked shut behind her, echoing through the house. I stood still, my hands curled into fists so hard my nails bit into my palms. My heart hammered, tears threatening to burn my eyes. How could this happen to us? A wave of nausea hit me. I stumbled into the bathroom, bracing myself on the sink, turning on the faucet to splash cold water on my face. The man in the mirror stared back with hollow eyes, as though someone had gutted his soul. My mind reeled with questions, accusations, regrets. At last, I sank to the floor, leaning against the cold tile wall. Flashes of memory assaulted me. Emma dancing at our wedding, her excited squeal when she sold her first painting, the comfort I'd felt whenever she was near. All of it tarnished now, overshadowed by a single monstrous betrayal. I heard the front door open downstairs, the rustle of a bag. Then it closed, leaving silence in its wake. She was gone. Maybe only for the night, maybe forever. I didn't care, or maybe I did, but I refused to acknowledge it. My phone buzzed in my pocket, snapping me out of my daze. I swiped it on, half expecting more anonymous messages. Instead, it was my boss, reminding me of a meeting in an hour. A normal piece of life intruding into this devastation. My finger hovered, uncertain. Then I texted back, not feeling well. Won't be in today. Short, cryptic. I set the phone aside and returned to the terrible hush of the empty house. I steadied myself. The day was just beginning, and everything I thought I knew had been shattered in a matter of minutes. Betrayal. The word repeated in my mind like a broken record. The heartbreak was immediate, a deep wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. After a few trembling breaths, I stood. I needed answers, or maybe vengeance. My blood still boiled, but beneath that anger lurked a heartbreak so profound I could barely breathe. I swore under my breath, a raw, desperate sound. The story had to start here, I realized. This was ground zero of my life unraveling. Whatever came next, I'd have to walk through the wreckage, piece by piece. I needed to find out more about this Brad. I needed to make sense of why my wife, my Emma, chose to do this to me. And I needed to decide how far I'd go to reclaim my dignity. The old me, the steady, predictable Jake, was gone. Now only this wounded, furious version of myself remained, and he was out for blood. The house felt foreign without Emma's presence, like a familiar tune played in the wrong key. Sunlight crept through the curtains, spotlighting the dust motes floating in the living room. I sank onto the sofa, the cushions swallowing me in a suffocating embrace. My mind tumbled between rage, grief, and an unrelenting need to do something. I opened my laptop again. I revisited the email chain, rereading messages that once seemed unthinkable. My hand shook as I clicked on Brad's profile. It listed his full name, Bradley Royce. I scrolled down to find a signature line. Independent Sales Representative, Royce Supplies. A quick search confirmed he worked for an art supplies distributor, ironically the same brand Emma used sometimes. My stomach twisted at the thought of them meeting under seemingly innocent circumstances. Business talk, casual flirting that escalated. Now it was a betrayal in living color. A memory surfaced. Emma smiling as she opened a new box of premium brushes, telling me how the sales rep was so enthusiastic about art. How he really understood her. That was him. She'd spoken about him right in front of me. And I'd been too trusting, too blind, to see the danger. I wanted to confront him, to see the face behind this devastation. Yet a flicker of caution held me back. Storming his workplace would be reckless. My knee jerked at the thought of a physical fight, as if reminding me I wasn't 19 anymore. I needed a plan, something methodical, something that would hurt him the way he hurt me. Outside, the neighbor's dog barked. A mundane sign of life carrying on. I realized how surreal it was, that life just continues, even when yours feels destroyed. I rubbed my eyes, forcing my thoughts to settle. If Emma had the audacity to cross the line, if Brad was so eager to intrude on my marriage, then perhaps I'd return the favor in a calculated way. But first, I needed more information. Pulling up social media, I found Brad easily. His profile picture showed him in casual attire, beaming at a scenic mountain trail. Posts about his sales targets, his intense workout routines, the occasional motivational quote. And there, tucked in between, photos from art shows, new product lines, mentions of great synergy with local designers. One comment thread included Emma's handle. My chest tightened as I clicked. Innocent banter, or a digital breadcrumb to something deeper. I scrolled through the conversation. It was all public, a string of compliments about some limited edition paint set. They joked about creative sparks. Looking at it now, those words took on a vile new meaning. My cheeks burned. I slammed the laptop shut, nausea rolling through me. This was a systematic betrayal, a slow burn behind my back. I rose and grabbed my car keys. I couldn't sit here stewing in my own anger, letting it poison me further. The city beckoned, a labyrinth of concrete and noise that might distract me. My mind drifted to possibilities. I could meet with a lawyer, gather legal advice on divorce, or at least figure out where I stood if this turned nastier. But each step felt heavier than the last as I walked to the garage. The drive through Seattle's early morning bustle felt like a dream. My thoughts spun, half-formed. Buildings whizzed by as I took random turns, eventually finding myself in front of a cafe Emma and I frequented on lazy weekends. I killed the engine, memories assaulting me. Her grin over a shared croissant, her gentle teasing about my addiction to black coffee. A wave of sadness nearly brought me to tears. Stop it. I needed something stronger than coffee now, but I entered the cafe anyway. Drawn by habit or masochism, I couldn't tell. The barista recognized me. "Hey Jake, your usual." I nodded numbly. The place smelled of fresh espresso and cinnamon. I took my cup, retreated to a small table in the corner. My phone vibrated. I hesitated, half expecting a text from Emma or another vile tip from a stranger. Instead, it was a friend. Walter, a coworker. "Everything okay?" "Heard you're out sick." My first impulse was to lie. Instead, I typed back, "Personal emergency. Let's talk later." I set the phone aside, trying to steady my breathing. It felt like an eternity before I worked up the courage to check for messages from Emma. Nothing. No apology, no explanation, no tearful admission. Anger bubbled inside me again. She'd just left. And now, I sat in the coffee shop where we used to chat about mundane things like grocery lists, oblivious to the fact she was sneaking around with some sales rep. A voice jarred me from my thoughts. "Jake?" I glanced up, my neighbor, Christine, approaching with a concerned frown. She was carrying a pastry box. "Hey, everything okay? You look pale." I forced a polite nod. "Yeah, just rough morning." She hovered for a moment, obviously unsure whether to pry. I saw Emma drive off earlier. Looked upset. My pulse quickened. "Oh, yeah, we had a disagreement. Understatement of the year. She'll be fine." Christine studied me with sympathetic eyes. Then she squeezed my shoulder gently. "Hope you guys are okay." With that, she left, leaving a swirl of sweet bakery scent in her wake. I sipped my coffee, my mind drifting to the video again. Emma's laughter, the shape of her bare shoulder. A vile, electric shock jolted me each time I replayed it. My imagination conjured humiliating images. Where else did they do it? Our bedroom. That art studio. I felt a surge of rage-laced adrenaline. The coffee in my stomach churned into acid. I needed answers, or at least the illusion of them. My phone beckoned. I texted Emma. "We need to talk." A minute passed. Then 2. No reply. Fine. I typed again. "I want every detail. Don't run from this." Still nothing. Shoving the phone in my pocket, I drained the rest of the coffee, ignoring how it scalded my throat. My next move seemed both obvious and torturous. I'd go see her parents, or a close friend. Someone who might know if this was a one-time slip or a longer affair. But did I really want details from a third party? I clenched my jaw. Then, in a reckless moment, I opened Emma's contact list on my phone. We'd once shared a cinched address book. I found Brad Art Supplies, quickly, the name so innocuous, like a real-life Trojan horse that carried disaster. My hand hovered over the call button. Am I really going to do this? Yes, rage flickered. I tapped the number. It rang. Once. Twice. My breath caught in my throat. Then a voice, smooth as oil. Brad Royce speaking. My heart thudded. "You son of a bitch." A pause. "Excuse me. Who is this?" I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. "This is Jake, Emma's husband." Silence. Then I heard him exhale. "Jake, look. Don't you dare try to Jake. Look me. I know everything." My voice shook, but I pressed on. "How long, Brad? How long have you two been?" He sighed. "I'm not doing this over the phone, man." I almost crushed the phone in my fist. "The hell you aren't. You had no problem doing it behind my back. You owe me some answers." Brad's tone hardened. "I get it. You're pissed. I'd be too. But it's complicated." A harsh laugh escaped me. "Complicated. Right. Because screwing a married woman is a real labyrinth of emotions." My words dripped sarcasm. He inhaled sharply. "Look, it wasn't supposed to be like this. Emma was lonely. We connected over art. That's all. She told me things were rough between you two. You what?" I snapped. Decided to swoop in and comfort her. "And by the way, record it." He hesitated. "The recording wasn't. I never meant for it to get out. Someone must have grabbed my phone or the cloud link. I'm sorry." "Sorry." My voice cracked with anger. "You don't know the meaning of that word." He took a beat. "I get it. You want revenge. Do what you gotta do. But keep Emma out of it, okay? She's hurting enough." Rage flared in me like a supernova. "Don't talk to me about her feelings. You had no right to." The line went dead. He'd hung up. My hand shook so badly I could barely lower the phone. Strangled fury pulsed through me. The nerve of that man. Acting like he was some misunderstood hero, that Emma was the only victim. She's hurting enough. They had inflicted the pain, and now I was left gutted. A cold clarity settled in me. This wasn't over. If he thought he could just say a few slick words and vanish, he was wrong. Emma might hide behind her guilt, but Brad had stepped into my life, my marriage, and shattered it. I needed to make him pay. Both of them. Finishing the last bitter swallow of coffee, I headed for the exit. My reflection in the window looked resolute, eyes dark with determination. I didn't know exactly how I'd get even, but I would. They'd stolen my trust, my dignity. Now, I'd take something from them. And maybe, just maybe, that would help me sleep at night. Fury fuels you like jet fuel, but it also leaves a black residue on everything you touch. I learned it the hard way as I embarked on my campaign to undo Brad's life the way he'd unraveled mine. The first step came almost too easily. A buddy of mine, Sam, worked in private investigations on the side, tracking down financial and personal dirt for corporate clients. I told him I suspected Brad had some shady dealings. Sam didn't ask many questions. He never did when money was right. I gave Sam Brad's full name, workplace details, and the addresses I gleaned from online directories. Then, stepping into a cold drizzle of Seattle rain, I waited. Days passed in a haze of phone calls and tense waiting. Meanwhile, Emma tried to call me 3 times, leaving voicemails. "Jake, can we talk? I'm worried about you." My only reply was silence. I talked to her again, but on my terms. Late Thursday evening, Sam rang me with updates. Turned out Brad was behind on taxes, owing the IRS a decent chunk of money. There were also rumored complaints from female clients about his aggressive flirting. Nothing fully proven, but enough to hint at possible sexual harassment allegations. My jaw tightened as I listened. "Thanks, Sam," I said, the line crackling. "This is perfect." The next morning, I called Brad's boss, the regional manager at Royce Supplies, and made an anonymous tip. I claimed I was an art client who'd felt uncomfortable with Brad's behavior, hinting I wasn't the only one. I mentioned I'd heard rumors about tax evasion too. The manager sounded alarmed, uncertain. Good. Let him stew. A twisted sense of satisfaction flared in my chest as I imagined Brad's world tilting. Maybe it would cost him a promotion or bury him in investigations. At the very least, he'd have to answer for something. My hands trembled with adrenaline. An eye for an eye. But the bitterness still tasted like ashes in my mouth. Next, Emma. In my mind, her betrayal felt bigger, deeper, more personal. She was my wife. She'd seen me at my weakest, comforted me when Mom died, celebrated each milestone by my side. And she'd thrown it all away for a cheap thrill. The memory of her laughing in that video seared me every time I closed my eyes. I returned home to an empty living room. Shades drawn, stale air. A box of old photographs lay on the coffee table. Our wedding pictures, our road trip to the Grand Canyon, lazy weekends by Lake Chillon, images of a life that now felt like a cruel joke. My phone buzzed. Emma again. I considered ignoring her. Instead, I picked up, letting the anger guide me. Her voice sounded fragile. "Jake." I stayed silent, letting her speak first. She exhaled shakily. "I need to see you. Please, we can't leave things like this." "Where are you?" I asked, my words clipped. "At my friend Allison's place." She paused. "I'm sorry. I know you don't believe it, but I am." Something inside me twisted. I was ready to let her drown in regret, but part of me still ached to see her face, if only to confirm the heartbreak in her eyes. "Fine. Meet me at the house. We'll talk." She arrived an hour later, eyes red-rimmed, hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She stepped inside, glancing around as though expecting ghosts. "Jake." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry." I folded my arms across my chest. "Stop saying that. It doesn't fix anything." Tears glistened. "I know. She inhaled. "It's over with Brad. I swear. It was a stupid, reckless thing. I was lonely, desperate for something new. But..." My laugh came out hollow. "You're lonely, so you hop into bed with a guy who sweet-talks you about art." She flinched. "It's not that simple." I slashed the air with my hand. "Then make it simple. Why him? Why now?" She looked at the floor. "Because I felt invisible. I've been trying to reach you, but all you talk about is work and mortgages. I love you, Jake, but we grew distant. Brad, he showed interest in me, in my art. He made me feel alive again. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did. And I hate myself for that." My fists clenched. "The damage is done. And guess what? I've already started unraveling his life. You think he'll hold on to his shiny job after what I leaked?" She gaped at me. "Jake, what did you do?" I shrugged. "Exposed his secrets. He messed with the wrong husband." Shock flashed across her face. You've always been so moral, so honest." A tear slipped down her cheek. "This isn't you." I snorted. "No, it's not. But you made me into this. And guess what else? I'm divorcing you." My throat tightened. "I'm done. She stumbled back, as if I'd physically struck her. "Jake, wait." "No." My voice shook. "You destroyed everything. I don't want to be married to a cheater. I want you to feel what I felt. Absolute ruin." Sobs racked her frame. For a split second, empathy tugged at me. But then I recalled the images of her with him. The video. Her laughter. My resolve hardened. She whispered, "I'll sign whatever you want. I deserve this. But please, know that I did love you." I turned away, heart pounding. "Go," I said, voice cold. "Pack the rest of your stuff. I don't want you here tonight." Her tears turned silent as she trudged upstairs. I slumped onto the couch, head in my hands, feeling hollow despite the revenge. That's it. That's my grand victory. I forced myself to breathe. She came back down, suitcase in hand, eyes brimming with sorrow. She lingered at the door. "Jake, for what it's worth." "I'm sorry," she repeated softly. I said nothing. She left, the door's latch clicking like a judge's gavel. The final verdict on 15 years of marriage. Minutes blurred into hours. I realized my phone was still in my pocket. Pulling it out, I found a text from Sam. "You want me to press further?" Found some more dirt. My first instinct was to say yes, bury Brad deeper. But as I hovered over the screen, I felt a pang of emptiness. I'd done enough. Let the man drown in his own arrogance. My revenge had begun, and I could sense it would ripple through his life soon enough. Darkness settled over the house. The hum of the fridge filled the silence. I paced the living room, rummaging for a sense of closure. My entire world felt stolen from me, replaced by this hateful atmosphere. I considered calling my sister Caroline. Maybe she'd tell me to calm down, to reconsider. But the bitterness in my heart overshadowed any second thoughts. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. My stomach lurched. Emma again. I opened the door, half expecting to see her contrite face. Instead, a courier in a rain-soaked jacket handed me an envelope. "Jacob Hutchinson," he asked, verifying my identity. I nodded, perplexed. He dashed off, leaving me alone with the sealed letter. Inside, an official notice. Petition for divorce. My eyes widened. Filed by Emma, dated earlier that day. She'd already done it. She must have acted out of guilt, or maybe she just anticipated my next move. A bitter laugh escaped. So that was her final statement. Fine. I tore the envelope in half, letting the pieces scatter. My path was clear. Sever every tie to this betrayal, and never look back. But deep inside, a voice whispered, "Nothing will erase the pain." And it was right. The heartbreak, the humiliation, they'd linger. My illusions of a perfect marriage had been ripped away, replaced by a raw, festering wound. I sank to the floor, pressing my back to the door, shoulders trembling. This was the moment I'd wanted, wasn't it? The apex of my revenge. Emma gone, Brad about to face corporate hell. But I felt no relief, only the distant echo of heartbreak. And in that echo, the final truth. I would never be the same man again. 2 weeks later, the final threads of my old life came undone. I found myself in a stark conference room downtown, finalizing divorce proceedings. Emma sat across from me, looking wan and exhausted, her lawyer by her side. We avoided direct eye contact, focusing on forms that spelled out the end of a marriage built over 15 years. Our attorneys droned on about asset division and personal property. Despite the tension, everything proceeded smoothly, almost too smoothly. Like two people who'd run out of words, we simply signed our goodbyes on dotted lines. Leaving the building, I stepped into a blustery Seattle afternoon. Gray clouds churned overhead. My suit jacket whipped in the wind as I stalked toward my car. I felt hollow, but oddly resolute. This was my new reality. Ex-husband, man on his own. A single step into a future I couldn't quite picture. That night, I drove past the old house. Emma had moved out completely, taking her art supplies and the cat. I saw no lights burning in the windows, just the faint outline of furniture she'd left behind. Tomorrow, a real estate agent would come to assess the property. My plan was to sell it. I wanted no ghosts, no reminders. Start fresh. My phone buzzed. A message from Sam. Brad's been suspended pending investigation. Looks like your tip worked. A savage satisfaction flickered inside me, though it felt duller now. I texted back a single word. Good. Then I powered off my phone. Instead of going home, I found myself pulling into the parking lot of a dingy motel on the outskirts of town. Not for anything shady. I just wanted anonymity. Escape. The neon sign buzzed overhead. I paid cash for a room, ignoring the suspicious look from the desk clerk. The room was as cheap as it looked. Scratchy bedspread, flickering lamp, musty air. But it was mine for the night, and that was enough. I set my bag down, sank onto the mattress. My reflection in the window was unrecognizable. Tired eyes, sagging shoulders, a man undone by betrayal and revenge. I let out a sharp breath and rummaged for a whiskey mini bottle I'd snagged at a convenience store. Twisting off the cap, I downed half in one gulp, wincing as it burned a trail down my throat. An old memory surfaced, Emma draping her arms around my neck, whispering that we'd weather anything together. My jaw clenched. That vow had meant something once. A knock startled me. I froze. Who could possibly know I'm here? I opened the door cautiously. To my astonishment, Emma stood there, hair plastered to her face by the rain. She wore a simple coat over jeans, eyes shimmering in the dingy hall light. I stiffened. How did you find me? She exhaled shakily. I texted you. When you didn't respond, I tried calling Sam. He said you might be lying low somewhere. A pause. Jake, please. Let me talk. A swirl of anger and pity wrestled in my chest. I stepped aside, letting her in. She dripped onto the threadbare carpet. We stared at each other, the silence thick with regret. I'm not sure what you want, I said at last, voice rough. We're already divorced. She swallowed. I needed to see you, to say goodbye properly. Her eyes, brimming with guilt and sorrow, reminded me of the woman I once knew, the one who used to laugh with me over silly jokes, who once beamed when I walked into a room. I glanced away. All right, I muttered, bracing myself. She took a trembling breath. I know you hate me. I hate me too sometimes, but you should know, I never wanted to end us. The divorce was just. I cut her off. A formality, yeah. We both knew there was no going back. Her lips quivered. Jake, I betrayed you. You had every right to be furious. I accept that. I want you to know Brad means nothing. I ended it the day you found out. He's out of my life. I'm not even painting right now. I can't pick up a brush without thinking of the mess I made. I studied her face. She looked shattered, a shell of herself. I'd imagined this moment, her sorrow, her regret, and thought I'd feel triumph. Instead, I felt an odd ache in my chest. We can't rewrite the past, I said quietly, turning away from her gaze. I'll always see that image of you two, and it'll tear me apart. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I know. I'm sorry. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Are you okay? My laugh was grim. No, but I'm alive. I'll figure it out. She took a tentative step closer. I wanted to do something to make amends. I sold a painting last week. Used the money to pay off part of the mortgage so you could sell the house more easily. It's not much, but it's something. I blinked, a mixture of surprise and heartbreak. Thank you. I managed. Then I'd forced myself to meet her eyes. I won't ever forget the pain you caused, Emma. But maybe someday I can forgive. Just not now. She let out a broken sob. I understand. For a fleeting moment, we hovered in a silence that felt almost sacred, two people at the end of a very long road. Then she turned toward the door. Her hand lingered on the knob, as though she wanted to say more. In the end, she just whispered, "Goodbye, Jake." After she left, I stood there staring at the closed door, breathing in the stale air. Her parting words echoed in my mind. That was it. The last piece of my old life, drifting away in the rain. I grabbed the whiskey, finished it in one searing gulp. No turning back now. The next day, I met with a realtor at the house. I walked her through the rooms. The living area where Emma and I had once slow danced to no music, the kitchen we'd repainted in bright yellows, the bedroom where I discovered the ugly truth. Each corner resonated with memories, but I felt numb. The realtor talked about staging, potential listings, market trends. I nodded, indifferent. Let her do her job. The house belonged to ghosts. Back in my car, I found a final text from Sam. "He's fired. Found out from a contact at Royce. Good luck, man." I stared at the phone, my reflection in the screen. So Brad was jobless, forced to face the consequences, a small flicker of grim satisfaction. Yet the victory felt hollow. I typed back a simple reply. "I'm done." Then I deleted Sam's contact, severing that final link to my vengeful spree. The last stop in my plan was the lawyer's office, where I filed any remaining paperwork to ensure I wouldn't be blindsided by finances. The lawyer asked if I was satisfied with the outcome, and all I could muster was a tired shrug. "It's over," I said. "That's what matters." That night, I returned to the motel, half-packed suitcase in the trunk, and stared at my reflection under buzzing fluorescent lights. A battered man, older than his years, eyes shadowed by betrayal and regret. But beneath the exhaustion, a spark of determination flickered. I'd survive. I didn't know exactly how, but I would. Tomorrow, I'd leave Seattle, find a temporary place, maybe in Oregon or even back in Chicago. Start over, away from the rubble of broken vows. As I closed the motel door behind me, I felt a sliver of clarity. My revenge was complete. Emma and Brad had paid the price in shattered relationships, job loss, a severed marriage. And me. I was free, in the most painful sense of that word. A sudden rush of wind rattled the window. I stood by the narrow bed, letting the city's neon glow spill across the worn carpet. My life had collapsed in a storm of betrayal, but as the raging winds receded, something resembling hope stirred. Maybe that's what the end always brings, a cold emptiness that can, with time, blossom into a new beginning. For now, I clung to that idea like a lifeline, determined to move forward, haunted but not destroyed. I zipped my suitcase, stepped into the night, and closed the door behind me. There, in the howling wind and distant hum of traffic, I felt my heart start to beat with a different rhythm. Still bruised, but resolute. I walked away, letting the motel's neon sign fade behind me, every step an echo of finality. I was alone, but I was alive. And that had to be enough.